joining in. Much appreciated. Let me just... you should be able to see. Alright, so my presentation is on nicknames of New York City. Can someone just unmute to just confirm that everyone can see the screen?
I can see it.
Okay. Alright, so... the first nickname is the Big Apple, and it was created in 1870s because Red Delicious apples were regarded as the best variety of fruit. And in the 1920s, John J. Fitzgerald, a journalist, wrote about horse races in New York, and he referred to the prizes won as the Big Apple, which symbolized the biggest and best one could achieve. And in the 1930s, Harlem jazz musicians promoted the nickname by writing it in their songs, and their mantra was, "There are many apples on a tree, but only one big apple." And then in the 1960s and 70s, when New York had a bad rep, a campaign was released, and they put a sign on the corner of 54th Street and Broadway that says Big Apple Corner, and volunteers had actually handed out real apples to tourists. The rotten apple, it was first used during the Gilded Age, and this is a quote that I had found. It said, "New York City is depicted as a dysfunctional, crime-plagued, vermin-infested, smog-choked, polluted, grimy, sleazy, seedy, corrupt, racially divided, poverty-ridden, morally and financially bankrupt, wretched hive filled with apathetic citizen, hostile jerkasses, violent psychotics with badges, drug addicts, deviants, and crumbling infrastructure and not enough parking spots." And then in the Rolling Stones song Shattered, they say, "Go ahead, bite the big apple, but don't mind the maggots." The City That Never Sleeps, it originated from the Avalon Bowery, and it was created by the residents that were calling it a night behind the curtainless windows. The Bowery had prompted author Jacob Riis to declare in his book that the Bowery never sleeps. And it wasn't until 1912 that the nickname was given to the whole city. And then the nickname was solidified when Frank Sinatra wrote about it in his song New York, New York. So before I talk about the next two nicknames, I want to make note to Washington Irving, who helped create many of the nicknames for New York City. So Irving was originally intended to be a lawyer, but his main duty was to create a series of 20 periodical essays entitled Salmagundi, and these writings were to be about a contemporary society of New York City. And Irving was a very prominent writer who helped increase the popularity for the nickname the Big Apple, but he also aided in creating two very popular nicknames, which will be in the next two slides. The first is Gotham, and most people think of Batman when they hear this name. However, Batman was actually influenced by New York City's infrastructure and actually takes its name from Gotham Jewelers. And the nickname first debuted in an 1807 periodical by Washington Irving, and it represented Old English, which literally means goat home. And the nickname was made to poke fun and make fools of the residents. The next is Knickerbocker. Knickerbocker was given to the residents in New York City as well as the New York Knicks. And Irving wrote a satire that was about the burlesque lifestyle of the early Dutch settlers. And the knickers were the baggy breeches that the Dutch had wore. And the nickname became popular in the mid-1800s, but it began being used for all things in New York. Concrete Jungle. This name was possibly derived from Upton St. Clair's The Jungle, which was published in 1905. The term started as asphalt jungle due to the 12,000 plus miles of sidewalks and concrete. The name Concrete Jungle was first used when an author was writing about lofty apartment houses, and it wasn't until 1928 that Concrete Jungle was contrasted with a human zoo, and the author from that article describes the residents as worse than animals and describes them as savages. The melting pot. The term melting pot was created in 1908 by Israel Sangwell. However, in 1893, Jackson Turner referred to the immigrants as melting into the culture. The term was meant the union of many nationalities, cultures, and ethnicities, and this can be seen through a variety of different cuisines and through the religion practiced throughout the city. Some dead nicknames and abbreviations. New Orange. It was used after 1673, after the Dutch captured New York from the English and dubbed it New Orange in honor of William III of Orange. Sushwick tried to come around in 2019. It represented where Bushwick and Bed-Stuy met on Broadway under the J Train. Beau Co Ca started in 2004, and it referred to the area of Boerum Hill, Cobble Hill, and Carroll Gardens. Rambo meant right around the Manhattan Bridge overpass, and people didn't like it because it reminded them of the Sylvester Stallone character. And then more recent nicknames that are now no longer used: Crow, Sobro, Spaha, Mipa, Soha, Parkwanis, and Dobro, which is just basically like the areas where they are. And this is my works cited. And that is all. Thank you, everyone, for joining. You just get back on here. Thank you very much. That's all.